You don't like Beethoven.
I really hate GoPros.
You don't know what you're missing.
A few moments later.
This is going to be the first multi-purpose review I've done. I bought one. I thought I might like it. Let's see, shall we? Whenever you hear the audio in this video, it will either be through the S5 IIX in this interview setup, the GoPro via Bluetooth, and if I throw in any iPhone, I also use the Bluetooth for that. And one more thing, no one really ever does this in film, in cinema, or any kinds of narratives, but I don't know why they do that. It's just a learned thing that we seem to do for the sake of testing. But you should track, and again, I've got some better shots. Maybe I'll go out and test it, and if so, run that B-roll. Now, you may have seen this already because I released it before this particular episode. I just did some quick tests. I took out the lens to see what it would look like, partially in some cases tracking a human subject, but also just using it as I might use a wide angle lens. And the field of view is obviously going to be wider than a 20 because it's anamorphic. Some of these shots you could see with me, it completely missed me as a subject, but you can take it in for what it's worth in terms of just the general environment. And when it's used to capture, whether it be nature or it could have been a cityscape, the quality is good, it's sharp, but the focusing definitely for tracking a subject, I think the closer you are to camera, the better, and the more center you are, the better it is. But I'll have a few more thoughts about that later. You'll notice at a few points in time, if the flare is at the upper third or the lower third of it, it will bend with the pin cushion. So if you feel that you want to always be correcting, you may have to do that a lot. Whereas if the flares are central, you won't notice it too badly. And if you've got lots of vertical lines on the left or the right, you'll notice the pin cushion distortion. But if you're central and if there was a lot going on the frame that doesn't have strong vertical or maybe even horizontal lines, you won't notice the effect too much and probably can still use it without much correction. But these are just a few shots I took to test the lens. In short, my thoughts of the Sirui 20mm 1.8 autofocus anamorphic lens 1.33x. I really like it. In short, it's great to have an anamorphic with autofocus. The only issue I would say with using it for subjects is I think you have to be within 1 meter to 3 meters to maybe get the best out of it. I think if you're standing a little bit outside of that and also not particularly front and center, it doesn't really pick you up. And in my case, if I turned, it sometimes hunted if I wasn't directly facing. Now, with a user behind the camera that would be, maybe to do a bit of tracking or able to tweak settings, I think this could be improved. Whereas, as you can see in some instances where I'm standing closer, it definitely tracks and locks a lot better. So I think in various situations, it would be better. It's not a solution for all situations. And also, I think the fact that it's an APS-C lens, even though I'm using it on a full frame, which I do like, given the extreme distortions with pin cushion on the sides, I still think that it looks very good. But the tracking points on the sides, maybe given the distortion, the AF doesn't seem to work particularly well on the sides, whereas maybe within the APS-C zone, if you could imagine, it definitely seems to work better. I don't know if that really is a real thing or not. The focus seemed to pick up more in the middle section, more center framing worked better. So that being said, I'd give it 2 thumbs up in regards to its overall usage, taking away slightly from the autofocus in maybe more complex situations with multiple people haven't been able to test. But the look of the lens, for if you're doing maybe more landscapes or just using it as a wide to capture, a lot of information in an environment. You know, the sharpness of the lens is great, the lightness of the lens is fantastic. We were able to put on a gimbal, no fatigue, really easy. All the shots of me was by someone who had never used a gimbal before, so it was really easy for them to handle and operate without, you know, too much fuss. If you've already seen the short documentary that I have made, I shot that with a 75 Anamorphic lens, which was a manual. Alongside that, I used a 18mm spherical lens. Now, if I had this lens during that, I definitely would have used this 20mm for all the wides. But these are my initial thoughts on using a lens. I would definitely consider owning a lens like this in the future, but there would have been no way for me to be moving and tracking, you know, using a manual focused lens that is anamorphic with any form of accuracy at, you know, 1.8 or even 2.8. There is definitely a place for this in my use case. For you, you may not like having to correct all the time, but I do like it, and I think that there is room for improvement. Anyway, moving on. Now, in my infinite wisdom, I bought a GoPro, and as I've already said, I've never liked GoPros, and in this instance, I bought one. I think the biggest reason I don't like it is because the image quality is very poor. Although it can work in daylight, it's not very good in low light, and for example, in a scene like this, it would be abysmal. Even during the day, if you were to be riding in a car and you've got dark interiors, you would still find problems. Now, testing the DJI Mic Mini, and it is a case of, again, by Bluetooth. I didn't want to be bothered with the issue of more connecting into the GoPro than needed. Hopefully the sound will be decent enough. I've also got the GH5 just as a comparison. Obviously not a good low light camera, but it is a Micro Four Thirds, which may well be better than a GoPro for these types of things. I can't imagine I'll be doing many car videos. I've got the DJI here, and it's under the shirt, but also it's got the magnet rather than the clip. So hopefully I'm not getting too much rustling. I don't really like to show the mic, and I've also taped off the logo, so there's that as well, because I really don't like seeing the logo on cameras. It's on the magnet and it's on the DJI microphone itself. I really don't see the point in advertising for them. So I'm really pleased that the DJI Mic Mini does sync directly to the iPhone and the GoPro. So that's kind of cool to have without too much cables and faff. But if you want to cable up like I'm doing now, that's all gravy too. The battery life seems to be pretty quick to drain. I'm shooting Bluetooth, so I'm not entirely sure what the quality will be like, but it's just a relative test. One thing I don't like with the DJI Mic Mini link up with the GoPro is that you can't tell if, for any reason, the battery is disconnected. There's no levels or metering from the view. So yeah, you get an image, but it would be really handy if you get some metering to tell you if your audio's cut off, the battery's finished, and just generally what the level's like. After using the iPhone 15 Pro Max, I kind of think that there isn't a massive advantage of having the GoPro, unless of course you're using it for action and sports. So that is the main purpose. It's not professional in the way that you would use a mirrorless camera or cinema camera. Obviously. Now, why did I buy a GoPro if I do not like the image quality out of them? The reason is I wanted it for BTS shots. I wanted it to have whilst filming, because let's face it, even though you may all have a phone in your pocket, do you really want to leave a phone set up on a tripod somewhere shooting if you're, for example, if you're not in a big crew or team and you've just got your phone sitting there? Especially in London, you don't want to have your phone out even in your hand, let alone on a tripod. So for the sake of safety and maybe capturing extra shots, and for example, just to give you that nice wide field of view, to get everything in, set it and forget it and not have to worry about it too much. Now again, ideally I probably want to use an ND with it, but for the purposes of my tests I've only just got one, so for some of my tests I haven't used it, and I may use it in the future, so please forgive any janky shutter frame issues. Have I learnt anything using the GoPro? In actual fact, yes. It really is quite handy in those moments where Perhaps I would take a mirrorless camera, a GH5 or similar, to take some BTS shots, but the autofocus isn't great. It takes a little bit more time to set up. Doing time lapses on the GH5 when I did a side-by-side was still better, but if you have to think you're doing other things, shooting, and you just want to hit a set it and forget it shot to pick up some BTS or capture a scene that might be the difference of capturing it or not, then I definitely think the GoPro Hero 12 in this case fits the bill. The normal stability didn't seem particularly good when just walking. The auto boost was a lot better. I would say that would be the go-to. I probably wouldn't use it without. Audio quality for, I was going to say pixel peepers, I don't know what the equivalent is for audio, but I would imagine the Lumix input will be a lot better. I think it's 16-bit rather than 24-bit in Bluetooth, the dropping of the audio settings. So my thoughts on the GoPro so far is I'm gonna keep it. I have liked using it. The image quality isn't great, but it does give you options in scenarios. Will I vlog with it? I'm not sure. I'm not really a vlogger. That's not normally my thing, but it may give me opportunities to capture my thoughts. And I have found that I've done that once or twice already in situations I wouldn't normally have done so. And also, if you want to leave that doing something and just come back to it without forgetting it, of course, it will give you some fun shots and it should be quite interesting to use along the way.
So powerful.
I wasn't specifically planning to do this setup for today, but whilst I had this in mind and just thought it would be kind of cool to do a different setup, very simply I'm using actually another piece of kit, the Smallwig flashlight. It's not this real name, I'll put it on screen, but it's kind of fun, and in this case it was really quick. Simple, practical here. Some reflective lights in the other side of the room and a little tube light in the back. So I'm not entirely sure who this video is going to appeal to because it's a little bit strange, and although I've got various lenses, testing the microphone with 3 different cameras, it's been a bit of an interesting one. Hopefully you've learned something and there's been something to keep your interest, but overall I thank you for watching if you have kept alongside this far. Please don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed it or learned something.